Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and wowee, I had a lot of gambles running into game week 3 which made for some pretty anxious moments. For those of you who are new to the channel and haven't been following along, I made 2 transfers early in the week last week in order to bring in Trippier a couple of weeks early and to bring in Foden for Rashford. Did this all midweek in order to catch the price rises, as I had exact money to go Rashford down to Foden and the out of favour Gabriel all the way up to Trippier. And when I pulled that move on about Tuesday or Wednesday, New Zealand time last week, Maddison was flagged and had been seen leaving the stadium last week on crutches. So I was over the moon to see his name on the team sheet when it came out, and even more stoked with his goal. Great finish. I think some people are saying that he looks like he actually mishit the shot. To me, it looks like he's scooped the ball past the keeper based on the way that the ball was coming into him and the angle at which he approached the ball. I think he meant to do what he did, but either way, I don't mind too much. The ball's in the back of the net and we got the points locked in. He could have got a lot more out of that game, though. He sent Richarlison through with a couple of huge chances. And for any of you out there with Richarlison in your teams, I suspect he is looking destined for the bench at some point, given how he's playing. He does not look on form, making poor decisions, bad touches. It just doesn't seem to be working for him in that number 9 position. But if you want to stick somewhere in Spurs, I would highly recommend Maddison. He is a quality player who is central to everything that Spurs seems to be doing at the moment. And so if you do not already have him in your squads, you could consider bringing him in. Before we move on, if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really does help the channel out. Now, before we jump into the topics of today, we have a quick look into the FPLFanatic League, which I've created for this season. It's the first time I've created the league, second season doing YouTube content, and we have had some huge scores coming in the FPLFanatic League. First of all, congratulations to Nathan Smith and Mark Evans, who smashed the Gusto picks. Looks like they opted to potentially, I don't know who they actually transferred out. Maybe it was James to jump on his replacement, but very nice £4 million player coming in with a 16-point haul. And Trevon Walker transferred in Sterling this week for his monstrous 19-pointer. Very nice transfer indeed. John Lai is currently second in the league. Looks to be playing for the monthly prices, as he's used a triple captain game week 1, wildcard game week 2, and a free hit in game week 3, where he tripled up on Chelsea with Sterling, Jackson and Chilwell. Very nice indeed. But the current honours go to Mark Hubbard, who pulled a bench boost this week. First chip that he's used in the season. Had Udogi, or Udogi, however you choose to pronounce it. I think they're both apparently acceptable pronunciations of the name. But got the 12 points in on the bench boost with a score of 71 for the game week. I believe no other chips used. 47 game week 2, 91 game week 1. Huge score game week 1. And that takes him up to 17k overall rank, which is very nice going. Congratulations to Mark Hubbard. So I'm currently on 183 points. Mark Hubbard's on 209, so what's that, 26 points between me and 17k. It's about 20 points or so, up to about 25k. I think the points are actually really, really close at the moment. So don't get too disheartened with whatever ranks you're currently sitting at the moment. I think for me, it's only, where did I have this? 4 points for 180k in rank difference. So 4 points for 180k, that's, from me to 450k roughly, is only 4 points away. So there's lots of players, all jam-packed, very close together. It is only 3 game weeks into the season, and so it is quite expected that ranks will be, well, there will be some very big rank swings with very little difference in terms of points. So, how did the team do? Well, apart from Maddison, it was a very anxious game week indeed. The first point I'll jump on is the Saka versus Odegaard for penalties. So I had a whole bunch of notes written for this video about who I thought was still on penalties, and my whole bunch of points came out that I thought Saka was still going to be on penalties, and lo and behold, Arsenal actually earned a penalty on the weekend just gone, and Saka did stand up to take it and sunk it. So I'll just quickly run through the points that I had written before that actually happened. So to give you a brief summary, Arteta apparently had no clue that Odegaard was going to take the penalty that Saka gave to him in game week 2. Other things that we have seen around the Premier League is last season when Man City were beating Leeds 2-0, where Gundogan had scored the 2 goals in that fixture, a penalty was awarded to Man City, and Haaland actually handed the ball over to Gundogan in order for him to complete his hat-trick. Gundogan actually missed the penalty, and then, well, within about, I think, 5 to 10 minutes, Leeds did pull a goal back to make it 2-1. And before that goal was pulled back, we saw Pep screaming from the sidelines at Haaland, "You have to take it, you have to take it." Now, he was asked about that after the match. This is all Pep, of course. 2-0, this is a business, not a situation where we cannot forget it. So even though he was, you could understand why Haaland gave the penalty across to Gundogan, he's saying that, there's a lot of stuff going, there's a lot of risk at play here. Haaland is the main penalty man and he has to take it. Now, we don't know what Arteta would have said to Saka and Odegaard after the match, but he definitely would have weighed in on what went on the field. The other things that we have to keep in mind is Saka had the ball in hand, and Odegaard actually went up to Saka to ask him to take the penalty. Now, there is a narrative floating around out in the community that Saka has lost penalties to Odegaard, which I think is very premature. Odegaard is the captain. He did ask Saka to take it, meaning that Saka is still the main penalty taker, and he asked to take the penalty off him. Now, potentially, Odegaard was taking some penalties in training, and he wants to boost up his goal tally, and he may go and ask Saka to take more penalties again in future, and so there could definitely be rotation in the penalty takers at Arsenal. However, well, we have now seen that another penalty has come up and Saka has stood up to take it. Now, whether or not that means he's not going to give away the penalties to Odegaard anymore is anyone's guess. Arteta could have obviously weighed in after the match and told Saka that he has to take penalties moving forward, or Arteta could have also seen Odegaard's penalty, penalty attempts in training, and he could be quite pleased with whatever Odegaard is doing, and Arteta could be more than happy to let Saka and Odegaard rotate through penalties if they so choose to do it. There are some advantages to doing that. It makes it much harder for the goalkeeper to predict where the penalty is going to go, because he's not entirely sure who is actually going to take the penalty. It means he has to do more prep work before the match to figure out if Odegaard does step up to take it, where is he likely to put the ball? If Saka's standing up to take it, where is he likely to put the ball? Are there anything that each of them are giving away in their run-ups or anything like that? So there are some advantages to rotating penalty takers. But in clutch moments, when it's a very important goal, I think you'll probably see the main man standing up to take it, which should hopefully still be Saka. So if you're still making a decision about who to bring in and you don't have either of Saka or Odegaard, I would still side with Saka, as I think he is still the main penalty taker. However, do not be surprised if he does in fact give it up sometime in the future. So I was super happy to see Saka obviously take the penalty. It did confirm my beliefs that he is still on pens, and it was a much needed 5 points for my team this week, as I only managed to scrape through 3 points above average. So on my 2 transfers in this week, I brought Trippier in. The reason that I brought Trippier in, which I discussed last week, was I did not fancy dropping down from Gabriel to, say, a 4.5 million asset in order to just probably have to upgrade him again in a couple of weeks' time to Trippier when Newcastle's fixtures turn for the better. Now, on my fixture ticker at the moment, Newcastle are currently sitting third in terms of the easiest run of fixtures across the next 8 game weeks. And if we skip it up to starting at the following game week, so not game week 4, which we're about to run into, but game week 5, Newcastle go second on the ticker and stay there for a little while. So I was fairly confident that I was going to want Trippier in a couple of weeks, and so I've saved myself a transfer by bringing him in early for a very tricky fixture against Liverpool, which I did not expect he was going to do too well in. Maybe he was going to score a goal from a free kick or nab an assist from some sort of set piece, but it was most likely going to be a 2-pointer. Unfortunately, Trippier picked up a yellow card in the match and they conceded 2 goals while Liverpool were down to 10 men. So a little bit worrying in the sense that they couldn't hold Liverpool out. I thought Newcastle had a very strong defensive game, all things considered, but they just did not take advantage of that extra man on the pitch. And what really surprised me is Trippier just did not seem to get forward, even with that extra man on the pitch when Van Dijk got sent off. On the sending off, straight red card, he went straight through the man who was in on goal, and Van Dijk was the last man in the back line, so 100% a red card there. But Eddie Howe did not adjust anything to take advantage of that. Excuse me. Did not make any changes to take advantage of the one extra man that he had on the pitch, and Newcastle give away some points. So not ideal to see. Newcastle do have a tricky fixture this way away to Brighton. Brighton are still currently top for XG across the first 3 game weeks with 7.95, followed very closely by Aston Villa at 7.65, and then Man City at 6.83. So Trippier will have his work cut out for him, and I did know that bringing him in last week. As I said, I've had to jump on him a little bit early, and so I'm not holding out much hope for Trippier in this game week either, but again, anything can happen in football, and Trippier is on enough set pieces that he could end up with an assist and maybe fluke a clean sheet in this fixture away to Brighton. Now, thankfully, the man that I got rid of, Gabriel, was benched again, third game week in a row. For any of you who are holding on to Gabriel and are hoping and praying, I think that boat has sailed and you need to get rid of Gabriel. He is clearly not in the first choice 11 for Arteta anymore. He is wanting to play Ben White in that right centre-back position with Partey out at right back. Not really in right back, it's only right back without the ball. As soon as Arsenal come into possession, Partey moves into the CDM role. Ben White kind of shifts out to his normal right back role and kind of plays a dual covering role in a back three. And so I do not see Gabriel getting onto the pitch at any time soon. And thankfully, Saliba, the people who moved for Saliba with that early team news, didn't pull away with any more points over my transfer in this week. Saliba only came away with a 1-pointer, so thankfully that did not hurt too badly. Now, Foden was my other transfer in, and he was benched through illness, so at least it was through illness and not through any sort of Pep rotation, but it is not great to see when I brought him in and he needed to match up to Rashford's points. So I sold Rashford ahead of a very kind looking fixture for Nottingham Forest, but I had been watching Manchester United play quite closely and was not at all impressed with how Manchester United had played in the first two games of the season. I actually tipped United to either draw 1-1 or lose 2-1 in that fixture, and United actually went down 2-0 within about the first 10 to 15 minutes of the match. So I wasn't at all surprised that that is the way that the game went down. I think Rashford and Fernandes owners got a little bit lucky in this fixture. The penalty that was given away was just, I don't know what the defender was thinking there, going after Rashford when he's very wide, hardly going to get past his man and only looking for a cross into the box. All he needed to do was shield off the passing angle, but instead he lunges in and gives away the penalty, which earns Rashford his second assist and Fernandes the goal to match Fernandes' assist, and comes away with 12 points. So thankfully I had Maddison, who matched up to Fernandes' points almost, 10 versus 12 there. Foden falls 3 points short of Rashford's 7-point haul. Everyone's got Saka, and so that's even Stevens, Mbuemo, and all the other 6.5 million assets blanked, apart from Diaby, who came away with 1 goal and an assist for a 12-point haul. And Salah came away with 1 assist, which I'm actually pretty happy about, considering he pulled that in when Liverpool were down to 10 men. But apart from that, he didn't really have any sort of outstanding fixture, all things considered. But like I said, Newcastle are a very, very good defence, and so it was going to be a little bit tricky for Salah to come away with any sort of haul there. However, Liverpool are now top of my ticker for the next 8 game weeks. They have Aston Villa at home this week, who we have seen ship a lot of opportunities in the first 3 game weeks. I think in terms of expected goals conceded, they've expected to concede 4.87, so almost 5 goals in 3 games. They are scoring a lot, Aston Villa, but their defence has looked pretty touch and go, and so this could be a great fixture for Salah. He's then away to Wolves in game week 5, home to West Ham in game week 6. That could be a little bit of a tricky fixture. West Ham's defence is looking relatively resolute. I mean, nowhere near up to the levels of Newcastle or whatnot, but West Ham are a little bit tricky. Tottenham's defence is looking all over the place, and so Salah could absolutely do the business there. Brighton have shipped a goal in every single game that they've played so far, and then he has Everton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, and Luton away to round out the next 8 game weeks. And so Salah is hopefully going to pull in some double-digit hauls over these next 8 game weeks, and I'm hoping that it's going to start this week at home to Aston Villa. Of course, Haaland was about captained by every single manager in the game. I think he had an EO of about 180% this week. City had more than enough chances to score in this game. Haaland missed a penalty as well. He does grab the goal, but I would not expect to see Man City to miss that many opportunities dominating the game in the way that they did. I cannot believe what Kyle Walker has done in order to give away that goal. What is he thinking? Doing a back heel in that position with that game state at 1-0 down. And of course it goes deflection to a great shot that deflects over the diving goalkeeper and into the goal. It's just the way football works sometimes. I was very surprised to see Foden not come on until very late in the match. 87th minute, he only spent 4 minutes on the pitch and managed to grab an assist. Very lucky assist. It was a cross from Walker, who was, to be fair, working his absolute arse off, having given away that goal. He fired the ball into Foden. Foden slightly miscontrolled it, popped up for Rodri, who smashed it home. So a very lucky assist from only 4 minutes onto the pitch. But I would have suspected that Foden would have come on a little bit earlier, considering that they had conceded the goal and still weren't scoring. But I guess he must have been quite ill for him to only come on when he did. I think it was the 86th minute when Sheffield United scored, and at that point Kovacic was subbed off for Foden to come on at the restart of play. So here's hoping he was actually really ill and only came on at the end of the game. Otherwise I would have expected him to come on at about the 60-minute mark or so in order to put that 1-0 game to bed. But we will have to wait and see what happens this week against Fulham, who are shipping a ton of chances. They are worst for XG conceded over the first 3 game weeks and are about to play Man City at the Etihad. I am definitely hoping that Foden is back fit and ready and hopefully starting for this potentially very lucrative fixture at home to Fulham. And the final man that I need to discuss in here is Joao Pedro, who was benched again. Now, if you've been following along with the channel, I did say pre-season that I was happy to take a couple of benchings from Joao Pedro in the first 4 to 5 game weeks as he works his way into the team. Unfortunately, it has happened in game weeks 2 and 3, where Brighton have had 3 very good opening fixtures. I was really hoping that those benchings wouldn't happen in those first 3, as those were really the money fixtures. Brighton are now bottom of my ticker across the next 8 game weeks. Have Newcastle at home this week. It's a very good defence. Manchester United away next week. Not too concerned about that, as long as he starts. Manchester United's defence is looking a shambles. Not helped by the fact that Luke Shaw is now out and out for a significant period of time. Mount being out as well means that their central defensive midfield role is not shielding the defensive line as well as it should be. They have a great game to Bournemouth, good game away to Aston Villa. This is Pedro we're talking about here, and then Liverpool at home, Man City away, and Fulham at home. So the run of fixtures isn't ideal for Brighton. Joao Pedro is on penalties if he is on the pitch, but the question is, will he actually get onto the pitch? Now, I was happy to take a couple of benchings. We've had a couple of benchings. If we see a third benching, then I will have to seriously consider whether or not I sell Joao Pedro. I'm not too sure exactly how long I'm going to wait for him to starting in that Brighton team, especially with the run of fixtures that is coming up. But I am currently hamstrung for money at the moment. As I mentioned, I made those 2 transfers last week as I had exact funds to jump on Foden and Trippier, leaving 0.0 in the bank, and so I actually have nowhere to go with Joao Pedro as of right now. I only have 1 free transfer in the bank, and with the international break coming up after game week 4, I was always planning to roll this transfer anyway. And so Joao Pedro is staying in the lineup. He will be starting in my team this week, and we will see whether or not he gets a start against a very well drilled Newcastle. But that is pretty much how the team ran out and my tentative plans for this week, which is currently do nothing. Obviously, things may change throughout the week, and so we'll release a team selection video a little bit closer to the deadline. But that is about it for the team. Now, the only other points that I did have were actually on Chelsea, who have an outstanding run of the next 5 fixtures. So Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Aston Villa at home, I've already mentioned defence is looking pretty shaky, Fulham away, one of the worst defences in the league at the moment, and then Burnley away. That is a sensational run of 5 fixtures for Chelsea. Now, I did watch quite a bit of the Chelsea game, as I got to see the whole second half of that fixture, and apart from Sterling, who looked amazing in that game, he got very lucky with that final assist. It was a cross that was deflected perfectly into the path of Nicholas Jackson, who was sandwiched between a couple of defenders, and it just fell perfectly for him to grab a tap-in. But apart from Sterling, I was not overly impressed with how Chelsea were actually playing. Gusto is, for 4.0 million, a great asset to own if you do want to jump on him. However, he will only be in the team until whenever James is back fit and ready. Gusto will probably immediately drop out as soon as James is fit and ready. But on the Nicholas Jackson pick, I am still a little bit, I would recommend caution. I mean, this run of fixtures is amazing. We've seen how terrible the decision making can be with Nottingham Forest and how they managed to give away a 2-0 lead against Manchester United, who did have a fair share of possession, but yeah, on the whole, Nottingham Forest not looking very sound in defence, and so Nicholas Jackson may come away with some points over that fixture and potentially the Bournemouth fixture as well. But he didn't stand out as any sort of amazing player. I think Chelsea should be looking to fill in that forward striker spot as quickly as they can. I do not know how well Jackson will do against, some decent opposition, but to be fair, this run of 5 fixtures is about as good as it gets, and so Jackson will probably come away with some more returns over the next 5 fixtures, but whether or not he's going to go big and come away with some monster hauls, I am not completely sold. If I had to pick anyone to jump on right now, it would be Sterling. I suspect there will be a lot of managers looking at a Chelsea option this week, probably selling either a second Arsenal attacker if they have two Arsenal attackers. I'd say most people will probably hold on to Saka. Or if you have Rashford or Bruno Fernandes, I imagine some managers will be looking to get, well, some non-template managers will be looking to get rid of Manchester United given how they are playing. If you are looking to get rid of Manchester United options, I think probably the best option that is nailed on for minutes would be a Raheem Sterling. If you're willing to go for the high ceiling chasing and bigger upside, you'd be looking at Phil Foden. However, there is obviously a risk of rotation in there. I'm kind of happy with that risk of rotation because even if he is benched, he should get onto the pitch about the 60 to 70th minute. And for that last half an hour of the game against these next four opponents of Fulham at home, West Ham away, Forest at home and Wolves away, Foden could come off the bench and absolutely do damage if he is in fact benched. I think he's still going to start, assuming he is over this illness. We will watch closely and see if we can guess where Pep is going in terms of his selection criteria. And that's it for today's video. So if you did enjoy this video and got something out of it, press the like button and consider subscribing. And if not, that's alright too. I appreciate you watching. Cheers.